What's going on, people? Welcome to this week's episode of the Indian Dots podcast. It's been a nice week full of racism and full of England being knocked out of the World Cup. So, not the World Cup, the Euros. So it's been great, but also quite shit. But otherwise, I'm doing okay. Karan, how are you? Karan, speak.
I'm trying to echo what you said, Indy. I was trying to... Maybe it's a new thing we can do. Like, you'll say stuff and I'll try and act it out.
I'm trying to say stuff and you're trying to give a reaction.
I'm pictionary and being
all of our
pictionary,
listeners are on audio right now.
But the loyal ones, man. The loyal ones,
Loyal
if this
ones
makes
will
it,
jump
makes it
through
to a
onto
clip.
YouTube. I can agree with that. I think they'll come through to YouTube. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Plus, we have the snippets, right?
We have the snippets. That is very
We
true.
have the snippets.
That is very
so,
true.
Potential. But
Yeah,
life is good, man. It's bloody hot. That's what I will say. It's very hot. I do not like it. Very sticky.
But you love going to India, so why is this any different?
Because when I go to India, I sit in air conditioning, bro. That's what.
There's no air conditioning in
Think
England.
like
Yeah, that's
that.
true, you know. I never thought of
This
that.
is the thing, right?
England needs more aircon units still. But then, hang on, if you think about it, there's only a handful of days in the year where it gets really hot. Like, I could do with a fan. That's it. 5 days. You're saying 5 days.
Maybe 10. Maximum.
Maybe 10.
Huh?
To
Maybe.
be fair, there's a nice little heat wave coming through on the weekends. That'd be cool.
Oh, that's exactly what I need, isn't it? You got a guy with so much hair, looks like Sasquatch.
I think you missed the point of
Bigfoot.
what I said. I said heat wave this weekend. That would be cool. That went straight over your head, but it's cool. Move on. It's fine.
Think you're some sort of cool guy, yeah? Trying to catch me out? Huh?
I think you missed my pun that I just came out with.
Yeah. Come and see me as a patient, innit? I'll be like, what are your symptoms?
fantastic.
And you tell me some bullshit, and I'm like, right, that's it, discharge for you then. I'm not treating you. That's right. Giving me that shit, huh?
Give you that
That's
shit,
good.
sitting there for
That's
3
good.
hours waiting to be seen by a doctor to only having to tell you to fuck off. That's
Free
not worth it, mate.
healthcare, mate. Free healthcare, huh?
It's
NHS. These people come in, I've been waiting
This is
3
what you're
hours.
saying.
I was like,
by the
listen,
way,
mate.
I need to give more translations now after last week because I didn't do enough. So you said,
Absolutely.
am I your uncle when you're coming to the hospital?
No.
What
I said, Tera chacha da NHS. Is it your uncle's NHS? This is a common
Is it your
Punjabi
uncle's
phrase.
NHS?
I use chacha there, but it could be mamme or it could be dad. You could use any male relation and basically say, you're basically saying, does he own the NHS, right? It's like it's like a funny thing to say. And, to all the people out there who say, I've been waiting this amount of time, it's like, listen, it's still free in the day, yeah? We're doing it, we're seeing you, we're doing the best we can. Most of us are doing the best we can.
That's questionable. Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
Most
Yeah,
of us, right?
Yeah, fine.
So, bit of gratitude, bit of appreciation, would go very far, man.
Don't worry,
'Cause if
man.
we start-
I'll keep clapping for you guys. I'm sure that'll give you guys all the pay rise you need, right?
Well, exactly. Well, but no, I mean, that's a separate thing. It's a financial thing. But when you're with somebody and we're with a patient, if there's genuine gratitude for if somebody's trying to help you, best form of payment that the patient can give you, man.
Big if that, isn't it?
Big if.
Big if indeed. Oh, he's opening the bottle. Oh, the wife's going to kick off. Oh, he's chugging. Oh, it's not going well. Gonna get beat. Can't wait.
Mate, I'm immune now. Double vaccinated.
What's that got to do with Shindy giving you beatings?
The
for
Shindy
opening
variant
the
comes.
bottle?
I'm immune to the Shindy variant. You don't worry.
No, you're not, mate.
I don't think even you're immune to that, man.
You know what's funny?
No way.
Garen's wife is only nice to me and only me out of all of our friends. It's actually really great.
You know why?
Yeah, I really revel in it. Why?
You know why? Because you kiss her ass. Oh, Bobby G. Oh, hello, Bobby G.
No, I don't. Hang on. I call all the wives Bobby. Let's get one thing straight, right?
Yeah,
I call all the wives Bobby. I do.
Why?
That's
No
just
one
how I
asks you
am.
to do that. No one asks you to do
Because
that.
it's banter, isn't it? It's
Oh,
banter.
yeah,
And then you're like, yeah,
Bobby
cool,
G.
it's cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do
Bobby.
it. It's cool.
Translate. What does Bobby mean?
Bobby means my brother's wife.
Yeah, it's a very respectful term. It's not
It's a very
expected in kind of our
respectful term.
generation.
There you go.
But Indy goes a long way, man. So fair play, man.
It goes a very long way, bro. Have you been keeping up to date with all the shit that's happened for this week then?
With what respect?
With the racism respect.
So we're sitting there with my brother-in-law, right, and we're watching the penalties go down, and Pickford saved that penalty from Italy, the
Jorginho.
one Jorginho, right? And if he scored it, obviously
Yeah.
he would have won. And then there's that moment of, okay, this is it, England's time, right? And my brother-in-law Kenny, he's almost predicting. He's like, if Saka misses this penalty, the amount of hate these three guys are going to get, right, is going to be unreal. And he kind of said it, and then I think in one of his WhatsApp groups, like a jokey message came about it, and then yeah, man, like the last week, the onslaught has just been it's been
Bro,
crazy.
I could see all the monkey emojis being sent prior to it even happening. Like, honestly, I could. As soon as Rashford missed and Sancho missed, I could see. I was like, I can see it happening already. Like, if we lose this, they're gonna get it. And you see Saka, who steps up, he's 19 years old. I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna get it too if he misses. That's it, done, happened.
What I will say,
my first instinct wasn't upset. It was like, yo, they're gonna get it. Like, I was more upset for them, for those three who were about to be completely ripped a new one online. I wasn't actually upset about the result. That came a little bit afterwards. It was more like, I'm concerned for those guys now and what's gonna happen to them.
which is it's a sad thing, isn't it? Because ultimately, it's a game, right? You kick this ball around for 90 minutes. It's nice to win. Okay, a lot of pride, right? And it's coming home has been there since game one. So the weight of expectation is huge, right? Like the build-up is huge. But I will say, Rashford's penalty, like the technique-wise, awesome penalty, man. Like it's inches, right?
It wasn't an awesome penalty. He hit the post.
No. He hit the post, but as in terms of the technique, not looking, at the keeper, like compared to a traditional penalty, I don't watch that much football, but the thing I kept saying when I used to play Pro Evo, when I didn't know how to use direction the penalty, all my penalties go down the middle. I was like, just go down the middle, man. Just go down the middle, man. Like this is where you put penalties.
Problem is with the keeper, as long as there's the Italy keeper, Donnarumma, he's
yeah.
So if he goes one way, his leg can still trail. So he can still catch it.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you put your, put your laces through it and you kick it really straight,
if you blast it, then yeah, maybe. But then you have the potential of like fucking it up,
going over the bar as well. Yeah.
So,
but it was a sexy penalty, man. And if it'd gone in, everyone would have been like, "Yo."
Right, he's scored better ones for Man United plenty of times. So I thought he wasn't going to miss personally, because I'm like, yo, he's very solid from that kind of position. But it happens, man. Pressure situation. He wasn't warm. He played like 1 minute prior. So
yeah. What's your opinion on that? Like somebody who's come on, clearly, it's a tactical change.
It's stupid because you have a chance to win the game in extra time and you didn't do it. Instead, you threw him on. You played him at right back when he's a right winger or left winger, which doesn't make any sense. You're not exactly getting him settled for the 1 or 2 minutes he was on the pitch. It didn't help him.
Right.
And then it was a pressure penalty as well, the third one, because I think it was all square at that point. No, they were 2-1 down, and then he took his penalty and missed, and I was like, oh shit, that's bad. And then it was even after that, so I'm like, oh, this is really bad. So. Yeah, just the pressure situation of it and all, I felt quite bad for him because he wasn't given a chance to sort of grow into the game. He hadn't played much all tournament. So all that kind of stuff is going to impact on you. And you're thinking, oh, if I miss this penalty, then I've not contributed anything. It's all my fault. But I haven't played much in the tournaments. How can you expect me to do a lot in that small period of time?
Tell me about the rules of penalty taking with respect to... Do you have to submit a list of players that are your nominated penalty takers? Can that be changed? Or
the referee doesn't care as long as somebody steps up and takes one and they haven't gone in the previous amount of players. So if you go from 1 to 11, obviously the player who took the first penalty can't take the 10th penalty, right? So they all 11 have to take it if it gets to 11. Now,
but your first 5 could be anyone.
The first 5, it just depends on whoever wants to go up. But if you watch the replays, the manager, Southgate, was assigning penalties to each player. He's like, you're 1, you're 2, you're 3, you're 4, you're 5, etc. So he chose the lineup. Okay.
So then again, from a person who doesn't really watch football, I've seen this. I mean, there's quite a few penalty shootouts in the Euros, and it seemed like a lot of the... You would think traditionally that strikers are going to be good penalty takers, or midfielders, but a lot of defenders seem to be... they're good. I'm not saying that they're bad and they clearly score, but what's the rationale behind, Grealish... and Sterling not taking penalties? Just explain that to me.
This is what people found weird. They didn't understand why Sterling hadn't taken one. So Sterling's last 5 penalties, he took 5, he missed 3. So his record from the spot isn't great. Grealish, I think the last time he took a penalty was like a year and a half ago, but he came out afterwards saying, I offered to take a penalty, I wanted to take one, the manager didn't want me to, he wanted someone else to take it.
Okay.
So I think Grealish was going to go 8th or 9th or something like that. That's why. So
if we look at this from the film Moneyball.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, right? So from a numbers point of view, the 5 that were selected, did they have the best penalty record in the recent times? Is that the logic here?
No, because if you did, you would have brought on Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's Everton striker off the bench. He takes penalties for Everton.
Okay.
You wouldn't have. You would have. I think he had other options on the bench. Could have potentially taken it, but there was a centre back who took it, Harry Maguire, and he blasted it into the top right corner. So it just depends on the player and how they're feeling at the time as well. There is that side of it. I assume he chose those 5 players because they've been performing with penalties in training. They've done very well with it. That's why I think he chose those guys to do it. But everything that we were feeling at home was a fraction of what they were feeling on the day. And Rio Ferdinand was saying, you can see on the day, he's seen players who have struggled to, they've struggled to cope with the pressure, they've backed out of taking it. He said, when you walk up to it, you can't feel your legs. Like, everything's off. It doesn't feel right. And I'm like, I can imagine that. The amount of pressure in that situation, I can definitely envision that kind of feeling.
What's the length of a football pitch?
I don't actually know the measurements, no.
Okay, whatever the unit is, but that walk from halfway line...
From the halfway line to there.
Right, there's nobody with you. There's also, his keeper, man, that is like, I don't know, 8 foot tall.
So as soon as they score the penalty, normally you would think you'd start walking straight away, just so you can shorten the length of time between waiting and having it play in your mind.
Right.
So as soon as they've taken the penalty, you will want to start walking straight away. So you can get there quick. You don't get the keeper settled and you can quickly take it.
No, absolutely. But look, it's a very lonely walk. You've obviously got, I don't know whose crowd was behind the goal at that point, right? But you've obviously got the noise.
That was the English fans. All the English fans were there.
Okay, you're English fans. So either way, you got someone either trying to put you off, or there's loads of expectation. People on hands on heads and all that kind of stuff. You got noise, which must be deafening, which must be like not on our level.
There was no noise. It was silent. Every time that we took a penalty, it was silent. Every time they took it, it was mad booing, which makes sense.
Trying to put them off. Yeah. But again, so it's at home. It's Wembley. This is our time. We're supposed to win. Like everything felt preordained. This is England's time.
It felt like it was the best chance that we'll get of winning it.
Yeah. But and then the Saka man, like, let's just try and comprehend this. How old is he? 19 or 18?
19 years old.
19. Read an article about him the other day, something about his GCSEs and A-levels, like all A stars, because his mum was like, you need to be a good dude in terms of academics, and then you can play football as well. But 19, Indy, like, that's first year uni.
Bro, when I was 19, I was not that responsible. No way.
Do you know what I mean? Responsibility. I wasn't an elite athlete. We weren't elite dancers at that point. Like, the guy's in shape, representing England. His first major tournament?
First major tournament.
First major tournament.
Professional penalty.
And the final penalty.
His first ever penalty. Ever professionally.
That's... Wow, man. And I saw this video the other day. They had like, I presume it's the aerial camera, right?
Yeah.
And it shows when the penalty was saved, and you had the pitch invasion of the Italians, right?
Yeah.
And you had them all swarming in, right? And then you just had Saka on his own, kind of just walking like this. And you had, I can't remember which England player came out first before.
Calvin Phillips.
Yeah, he came, and then Southgate came. There's obviously that infamous picture of him hugging him, and just, you can see just the emotion is raw and he's crying. But how lonely that, I can only imagine, is the feeling of bottomless pit. Like, oh my God, like the shock and the horror of just like,
Yeah, it's horrible, man. I think the bit that riled me up the most was the racism afterwards. So I think we need to paint a picture, right, of like a storyline of events, sequence of events that happened. Yeah. So for listeners out there that haven't really paid much attention to it, I think you probably have, but there's like context and subcontext needed. So, all right, missed the penalty, everything happens. First thing that happens on social media, I jumped on my phone. I went onto some of the players' Instagram profiles and stuff in their latest posts. And you could see a mix of support, but also a mix of racist messages at the same time.
To give context here, you're talking like seconds, minutes from missing?
I'm talking like 5 or 10 minutes after missing.
5, 10 minutes.
Like, let me just see this as like an experiment. Like, I jumped on and I could see people were putting in support messages, but I saw like a few racist messages. I was like, all right, no shock. And it just gradually got worse and worse. And I was thinking, I could see this getting really bad overnight. And I think the situation here is more complicated than we think. So there was a feeling up until the tournament happened that everybody felt like the whole nation was really close and tight-knit and united. But second, the black players have done bad, or the minority players have done bad, it's like, you're minority, we're English, you're not English. Right?
You messed it up.
Fuck off, you're not English, you fucked up. It's like it's a very transactional relationship. It's like, you're good to us when you're good to us. When you're bad to us, you're very bad to us. If you make a mistake, you're not in our good books ever again. So if you notice, when you watch Raheem Sterling play, the guy who basically carried England to the flipping knockout stages, I can see that he treats the England role as a job. Like this is a job, I'm just doing this. Not because he's fully like invested in it anymore. He's dealt with all the abuse in the past from like the newspapers and media. He knows what to expect. He knows how reactionary they are. So right now the media love him, but in the past they were hating on him. So he's got a level head where he's like, this is just a job. This is just England. It is what it is. I don't blame him for taking that kind of stance, because you can't just sit there and just be all happy all the time, knowing that 1 minute they're shaking your hand, the next minute when your back's turned they're stabbing you. So it doesn't help the situation. So that kind of bias is there, and that feeling, which is completely fair. Now, in England, I do think that there is like an inherent race problem, especially when it comes to stuff like this, because a part of me is actually not happy, but it's good to see that we didn't win the Euros, because if we won the Euros, we wouldn't have seen how much of an issue there still is out there with racism. It would have been overlooked, would have been overshadowed. We'd have all been celebrating with these racist people that are all like, oh, this is great, this is fantastic. So
let's give it again. Give me context. I'm presuming the people you're talking to are still a minority compared to majority.
I don't know. This is the thing, Karan, right? You don't know. So if we look at, this is really random, but look at percentages, right? Number of racist messages that are put out there, fine, they're in hidden profiles, anonymous profiles, probably a few hundred. But that's people who are brave enough to think, I could just talk on social media and nothing's going to happen to me. There's loads of this stuff happening in other separate private conversations.
Plus the people who think it but don't say it, that's what you're saying.
So there is that as well, which I'll come to, because there's been instances of like messages being leaked. So all that stuff has happened. Now, going back to this, so I'm really happy that I support England, but we always see its ugly head appear, and it makes me think twice that if English culture is as accepting as we think it is. So I sit there and think, is English culture really that welcoming as what I thought it was, say, back in like the 70s or 80s when hooliganism was really at its highest?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things here. There's racism in isolation. Let me explain what that means. And then there's racism which leads to violence. So that, you know, the former which you're talking to in the 70s and what we hear from, maybe not when our parents came, but maybe their parents, right? And other ethnic minorities, there was they talk about riots, they talk about violence, they talk about like abuse, right?
Yeah.
My question is that still prevalent?
I don't know. I think now, I still think personally, if I was me, there's some parts of the UK I wouldn't walk into if I was brown on my own, because I wouldn't be comfortable with it. I know that that's maybe a very UKIP area, or that's a very racist area, because that's how it is. Fine, I respect that. So I do think that's still there. That it's just there's not barriers, there's borderlines been built where people are like, that's a racist area, that's an okay area, that's an accepting area, that's a neutral
moderate
area,
progressive. You got progressive areas.
Yeah, and there's some spaces where you just don't bother setting foot into because you know what's going to happen to you. Right. So yeah, I think that there is a distinction to be had there, but the problem, football and politics run side by side. I know people don't like to think this, but it really does. Now, if you look at what the MPs did with like the booing of the players taking the knee, so everybody thought the players were taking the knee at the start of a football game because of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Okay.
They said they weren't doing it for that; they were doing it for racial inequality. Now you've got two issues here. Okay. You've got Boris Johnson and Preeti Patel, who were asked, do you endorse that or do you condone it?
Yeah.
Or do you condone players being booed? Preeti Patel said players can essentially do what they want. Sorry, fans can do what they want. If they want to boo, they have a right to boo. So she didn't condone it. Boris said he wouldn't take the knee, or he didn't necessarily say he was for it or against it. He didn't condone it. So by doing that, you're essentially empowering people to take things one step further. So why would you boo a player who's taking a knee for racial inequality? Surely we all want that to be stamped out, right?
Should be universal, yeah.
That should be a universal thing, but it's not. So it's no surprise that those three players were racially abused afterwards, but I do think that part of that is down to politics and what the MPs did.
So not coming out strong enough to have an opinion, right?
Exactly, and they didn't come out strongly in favour of the players or taking the knee. Instead, Preeti Patel said, it's gesture politics, which is really wrong, because It's not gesture politics. They're telling you the reason behind the reason why they're doing it. And she's saying, don't take the knee. There's other ways of protesting. I'm like, hang on.
Yeah, but
That's probably the most peaceful way you can protest. What
it's
other ways can you
it's
do
peaceful. And look, we talk about social media and influencers, right? Influence is all about reach.
Yeah.
Like, maybe apart from Shindy, who doesn't like football, I think everybody watches when England plays. If you're in England, even if I don't watch football, Premiership, whatever, but if England are playing...
Viewership of the England game peaked at like 30 million or something on Saturday.
Right, and the population of
it was
the UK is...
A population of like 65 million. So
right, so 50%. Really, that's really a lot of people.
But that was only on BBC. I don't know ITV's figures. Maybe they were higher.
Fine.
Right?
Point is,
or maybe
it's got a lot of viewership. A lot of viewership. So whatever she's saying about gesture politics doesn't make sense, man. You've got people who are role models for a lot of people, right? Because the thing is, when we look at the racists, right, you've got people who are set in their ways, who just haven't been challenged for a long time, who are inherently just fixated on an ideology. But then you've got this other, the generation below who can still be influenced, right? The influenceables, the next generation. And if they're looking up to footballers, and footballers in England, our superstars, people like Grealish and all this type of thing, right?
Yeah.
If they're doing something meaningful with the right intentions, and like you said, they're explaining why they're taking the knee, this is the thing. It's not just for show or whatever. It's a real meaningful thing that shouldn't exist in this year, 2021, right? Then it's a perfect platform, man. This is a perfect platform to show young people that this is important. And she's saying, "Oh, you can, what did she say? Protest in
you
other ways.
You have a right to boo the players if you want." But then afterwards,
I think that comment just does not need to be said.
Saying that they're shocked that racism is still happening, and I'm like, you guys
are
mobilizing this, like you're orchestrating this from the very beginning. It's stupid. It's like you're lighting other people's torches, and then they're setting fire, and you're saying, "Oh, how did the fire happen?" I'm like, you lit the torches. That's what happened. Can you not see that?
I mean, look, we are a country where free speech is important to us, right? But there are some instances where, although we know that, I don't think it's important to make it blatantly and say it. Like she said it there. She's right. People do have a right to boo it. That's right. But you shouldn't say it, not someone in her position. She should have an opinion.
You should also say that I understand why the players are doing it. Like, if you say you understand why the players are doing it, don't boo them. They can take this for the right means. Who doesn't want racial inequality? Priti Patel, you're a minority. Surely you would think that. But then again, you're a conservative, so maybe you're not as minority focused as, say, somebody else. So I guess there's a bit of leeway to be had there. So the weird thing is, though, is that you can see cracks in the government forming now, which is senior Tories have come out and said that they disagree with the government's response to taking the knee. So there's a guy called Johnny Mercer, who's a former ex-Marine. He's an MP of Plymouth Moor. One of the players afterwards, Tyrone Mings, he had a go at Priti Patel on Twitter saying, "You don't get to come out and condone something when you set fire to it," basically. I think his exact quote was, "You don't get to stoke the fire at the beginning of the tournament by labelling our anti-racism messages gesture politics and then pretend to be disgusted when the very thing we're campaigning against happens." And this guy, Johnny Mercer, who is a Tory MP, says, the painful truth is that this guy's completely right. He's very uncomfortable with the position the Conservatives are in and forcing themselves into. And he says, "Do I fight or stay silent? Modern conservatism was meant to be more to me. We shouldn't lose our way." So you can see there's cracks within the party forming, which is like, hang on, I think we can all agree that racism is wrong. Like, that should be universal amongst the party, but it isn't.
The world.
So it's one of the things that I've heard James O'Brien say about the government. He said, this government, they'll flip a coin, they'll shout heads and they'll shout tails. So they'll say, "Don't boo, but you can boo." It's like, what? That doesn't make sense. You're giving
what does that sound like?
Messages. Exactly, and they keep doing that for all these things, like
COVID.
Stay indoors, go outside. Like it.
Go to work, but don't try and work.
Exactly, it doesn't make sense, and they keep doing it, and people keep on listening to it.
And this is the problem. Like we've talked about many times on previous podcasts. People like to be led. Okay, most people in the population are sheep. Jordan Peterson, 95% of what you say is not your own opinion. So if you have someone in power, obviously leadership, the government, right, central government, who are saying things, and you're an impressionable mind, you're a vulnerable mind, let's say, who can't critique and form your independent thought, then actually you're going to adopt that opinion. And that's the point. What you're making is that if somebody presents something that basically just creates confusion, do this and do this, but you're saying both things,
Yeah.
That confusion then just leads to this herd mentality, and then that's where all this hate comes from, man.
Exactly. So that's pretty much the crux of that problem. Now, the weird thing is that with with the issues in the party, obviously each MP is going to take a stance that is going to show the best interest of their voters. Now, if you look at someone like Priti Patel, I'm sure she says what she does because she believes it, but it's also because she needs to score favouritism amongst her constituents so she can get re-elected. Everything in politics is all about scoring points, so no matter what happens, it's all about, like, I'm going to say something, but it has to be what reflects the people in my area, otherwise I'm not going to get re-elected.
Rather than what I think.
So I'm sure she is basically saying the stuff that will help her own cause, basically later on. Her father ran for UKIP apparently earlier in the week as well. He didn't win. So I'm like, hang on.
Interesting family.
The math isn't matching right now, right? This doesn't make sense. It's a very weird a weird family to go and do something like that. And with her own immigration policy, she would have ended up deporting her own parents if they were to have gone through. So, special rules. That's what would have happened. Yeah, so that's weird. Now, another layer to this as well is that you find out the people who were arrested for the racist tweets that were sent out. I think one of them was sent to Marcus Rashford. One of them's a youth football team coach.
Youth football team coach, grassroots level.
Yeah, so at grassroots level, he's a youth coach, right? Which means everyone thinks like, oh, it's just some guy who's like a yob who's like in Middle England who is in like a random
drunk, uneducated.
House. He's drunk, uneducated, stupid. But this guy's a coach. He deals with kids of all colours all the time. He's saying stuff like this. I'm like, okay, that's problematic. Another layer to this is Portsmouth have an under-18s team.
Right.
They have a Snapchat messaging group. And some of their Snapchat messages got leaked. And it was just racial slur after racial slur after racial slur about all the players. And that
all the players as in those three, or
about those three players who missed the penalty, basically.
Okay.
And in there, they're basically saying everything about every racial slur you can think of under the sun about those players. And this then makes me think that, hang on, we can't think that all of this is just old, ignorant people saying it anymore. It's also seeping into the younger generation who are saying the same racial things about players who are only slightly older than them. Now, no kid's born a racist, but I think it's learned somewhere along the way. And the question is, where is that way, or what point is that learned?
Is it conscious or not?
I think it has to be conscious, because you're consciously embarking. Actually, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's learned behavior.
Maybe not conscious. But here's a better way of phrasing it. When said people, right, so not the drunkards, like you're saying, basically people of education who have an okay mind, let's say sound mind, right? Yeah. What is the intention? It's wrong either way, so we're not going to defend that the comments are right or wrong. They're clearly wrong. I get it, yeah. But what is the intention of the comment? Is the intention to fit in? Is the intention is the popular thing within that circle? What do you think the intention is of these people? Or is the intention, I genuinely believe what I'm saying, and therefore I'm a racist?
I think a part of it is they genuinely believe the things that they're saying, which is black people are this, they are that, they shouldn't be representing the nation. Like, these are probably the common thoughts that are held amongst themselves, and it just makes you think, oh fuck, like, where did that go so wrong for them to form that thought pattern?
Hate, man. Like, we can say the word racism, right? But that might get lost on some people.
They are
this
under 18. They're under 18 kids. And I'm like, you're fucking thinking like this. You're under 18 years old. Like, where did you get this from? At what point did you pick up these habits?
Indoctrination.
Where did that come in? Like, was it your parents? Was it something you heard in school? Was it something that wasn't stamped out at school? Have you not been exposed to minority people? Like, there's so many factors that you have to think to really get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, but it's the same with anything, isn't it? It's just that obviously racism and hate, or hate crime, let's say, is very inflammatory, but all behaviour is learned behaviour based on what you read, what you see, yes, the influences. But you're right, the question we have to ask is, and that's why I think to take it a step further is, this is hate, man. Like, how can a person hate another person they probably don't know on a personal level? That's true. It's not like they hang around with these three guys because of their colour.
Because they missed the fucking penalty in football.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
like they killed anyone.
Yeah.
They
Missed the
didn't do anything
penalty
inherently
and then
bad.
blamed the inability to score on their colour.
Yeah,
On
which is
someone's
stupid.
colour, man.
It doesn't make sense.
Unacceptable.
Bearing in mind, a black man carried England to the knockout stages as well. But that gets overlooked, doesn't it? Because that's not important. That context isn't important. But I'm like, Raheem Sterling scored all the goals for England up until the knockout stages. So without him, you wouldn't have scored those goals. That's it. It's that simple.
Well, you wouldn't
So
be in the
wouldn't offer
position to... Yeah, exactly. And like your point is, when they're doing well, it's a united kingdom, right?
it. Yeah, yeah.
And then in the back end, it's the problem is it's the need to scapegoat. Why can't it be?
conditional.
Why can't the party line be Italy play better? Italy's day,
Yeah.
whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like they played well. Fucking, we did really well to get to the final. Great run, boys. But no, these three, man, this is the problem, and it's not because they're shit. That's different. You could have said, "Oh, they're shit," and why did they have penalties, right? But it's because they're black.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
There's
That's
so many
completely
other criteria you can say. So you can say like, oh, he's a crap player. He's out of form.
Right,
He's not played
right.
well.
Yeah,
He's been off colour for a while. He's not been great.
He's been what? Off colour?
He's been off colour. Like it just.
All right,
means that he's
indeed.
off
A
form,
bit of a pun there.
Yeah, cheers. Sorry, I didn't mean that. That was
Good.
unintentional. But you can say all these different things like that are like minor insults, or you
Right.
can say that they're not very talented, right? But taking it to this level, just saying like, no, I'm gonna skip out 1 to 40 and say number 41, which is the race thing, straight away. I'm like, hang on,
And which is completely
why are you jumping
irrational.
to that straight away.
It's irrational.
Like I can tell you now, I'm not Marcus Rashford's biggest fan because I think he's an inconsistent player. I think he's done great for the
Fine,
nation.
that's an opinion based on
but I
you
say
seeing
that
him
as an
play,
opinion based on
stats.
his footballing
Yeah.
ability. As
Yeah,
a man, top guy, like feeding kids and everything, sorting all that out. Here's the fucked up thing. One of the guys who tweeted him the racist thing as well, another person.
The BBC
You
guy,
saw
man.
this today.
The comedian.
No, hang on.
I'd rather he scored the goals and the kids go hungry. You see that one?
Yeah, he said that. Now, comedian, I get it. Like, I think if an established comedian said that, it's acceptable. But I think tweeting that out doesn't help. If you say that in a stand-up show later on when it's cool,
In context.
that's cool.
When it's
that
died
makes
down.
sense. If
Yeah,
you
yeah,
build up the joke, if you have a premise, if you can then tell it properly, it works, it sticks. But if you say it like straight away, it's like, yo, you're just being a bit of a hack and you want to get laughs.
inflammatory hate.
But park that for one sec, right? One of the guys who racially abused him said his son got free school meals from Rashford's campaign. So I'm like, hang on, this guy
Wow.
actually fed your
Wow.
kids.
Benefited.
He fed your
Wow.
kids, and you're still abusing him. Fuck me. How thick are you? Honestly, that's incredible.
That's
And he said, "Oh, I was drunk. I didn't mean to do it." I said, "Mate, I get drunk. The first thing I don't do. Sorry, the first thing I do when I'm drunk is I pick up my phone and I racially abuse someone, don't I? No, I don't. Like, there's
I know.
no.
I know what
hiding
you
behind
do.
that.
I know what you do.
What do I do? I fall asleep in clubs. Yeah.
He goes in the corner, lets his hair down, falls asleep, and then we get a message saying, "Oh, I've gone home now.
I'm
in
going
bed.
home. I'm
I'll see you
tired."
tomorrow."
Exactly. But there's things like that. There's a guy who works for Savills. Have you heard that story?
No, go on.
So a guy who works for Savills called Rashford. I think it was the M word.
Right. N.
And
November.
yeah, the M word. And
Yeah.
someone screenshotted it. They added Savills on Twitter. Savills said they're investigating. The guy said, the guy's backup, he deleted all his social media. He said, "Oh, I was hacked."
Yeah. Cop out. Easy cop
I'm
out.
like,
man.
you can tell when someone's hacked. You can go into their IP history. You can see where it logged in from and see if they were hacked. I don't think he was. I think he's using it as a cop out, trying to
No,
hide.
absolutely, man. There was a guy.
Incredible. And he's a director at Savills.
Again, so that's what's worrying. You've got people who clearly are well informed, educated, and again,
High up at companies.
do you know what I mean? So in positions of power, and obviously their word carries some weight, and they're thinking. And the problem is that's going to filter down, isn't it? If
Yeah,
someone,
it
like we
does,
said
it
earlier,
does.
with central leadership, if you are saying something, then if the people who are not going to make an opinion, right, who just want to conform and follow, that will
Yeah.
become their opinion, and you're basically radicalizing these moderates, man. That's the problem. The uneducated.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue, man. There was a comedian who said something like, right, he made it like a matter of fact kind of statement thing. He's something like, all I'm saying is the white guy scored and the black guy's missed. So something like that, right?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I was
The
like,
BBC guy, you just can't say it. You can't say this stuff, man. Like, it's just when you need solidarity, when you need people like David Beckham, Gary Lineker, all these people coming out, Rio Ferdinand saying, "Great run, boys. This is not England." That's what you need.
All of them have also missed penalties. Like some of the greatest players ever missed penalties. Ronaldo missed a penalty Champions League final. Beckham spooned that penalty over like all those years ago. I'm like, come on, man. Like people memorize all this stuff. Like it stays there, but it doesn't taint who you are as a person. I don't sit there and think, he missed it because he's white. Like I don't think that. I just think like, he missed a penalty. That's it. It's not a big deal. What happens.
And if you think about that, we can't even imagine a situation where that would ever be said, he missed it because he's white in it. Like, it doesn't hold any...
No, it doesn't hold any meaning. But if you say you missed it because he's black, you're like, hang on. That resonates with people. I'm like, well, why does that resonate with people? You know? It's incredible. So I'm thinking now, genuinely, how do you fix racism? Like, honestly, I was just spitballing thinking, like, how do you fix it? And I'm thinking, all right, everyone says representation. Okay, fine. Representation in what way? Because I don't want people in a job because they don't deserve it, yeah? I'm like, how do you represent people in the right way? I think it's getting people the interviews or getting them in those positions where they can get into those jobs. So say on the BBC the other day or on ITV news panels or whatever, and they're talking about racism and there's not a black person on there, it's all being discussed by white people. I'm like, that's where representation is needed. You need a person of colour on there to explain to them how racism actually works. How it's been for them,
how it feels,
it feels, etc. Because you don't get it. Like it doesn't make sense. It's like asking experts in a completely different field of life about another topic that they're not well versed in. It's like asking an architect about how to be an anthropologist. It doesn't make sense. It's wrong. You need to have people in the right sort of, not in the right field, but people who have experienced relevant kind of experience. Again.
Exactly. It has to be. It can't be academic. It has to be like, yes, this is what it feels like because I've been through it or I've had meaningful experience. I guess ultimately, and it's what we said last week actually on the podcast. We talked about the white supremacist and having meaningful conversation and dialogue to understand, right? Because no, this isn't about racism, but in the NHS we get a lot of complaints, right? And like the other day, I had somebody mouthing off, just shouting on the ward. Just kicking off. I just walked up to him and said, "What is your problem?" This is what I said to him. No. I said, "I'm going to ask you again. What is your problem and how can I fix it right now? Tell me the problem." Right? Just cut straight to it. All it came down to, long story short, was he hadn't had his normal medicines, which included painkillers. He had chronic pain, right? Gave him a stat dose of his painkiller. And he was hungry. Got him a sandwich and some soup. Problem fixed. Now that's oversimplification. But the point is, we need to start people in positions where they can voice their opinion need to start speaking, and we need to start challenging people in a meaningful way. So debate is the thing. We need to understand, where is this opinion coming from? Is it your opinion, and what is it based on? So I start thinking about like American History X and the film, and when he goes to prison and he spends time with that black guy, and he's like, oh, all this shit I thought before, all these preconceptions, was based on what? Because I was indoctrinated, right? But then if I had some experience with a person of color, then my perception, my reasoning, my understanding would change. How do you do that en masse? That's the question. Because you and me could have conversations, right?
If you ask people, what's your problem, and they can't give you an actual answer, that's where it gets problematic. It's like if you ask a person who voted Brexit, why'd you vote Brexit, and they can't give you a real answer, or they've been lied to and you disprove it, and they still cling on to it, it's like, okay, I can't help you now because your point has been disproven. That's discredited. The thought you had is now no longer true, and you're still clinging on to this thought that person's bad or just black people are bad people. And I'm like, okay, hang on. I can't break that now. I can't change you. I've understood why you do it, but that's probably a one nuanced point, but you're so dedicated to this thought that I can't break you out of it. It's kind of like brainwashing.
No, it is. That's what I say, indoctrination. But so that's level one, isn't it? So level one is you speak to somebody, and ultimately,
so dialects on the other side. So this is what I was saying. The white supremacist thing, like how you said, you need to speak to people who think differently to you. Yeah. But talking to people now, like a person on the right, a person on the left, just politically trying to get them to talk to each other, it turns into like a point scoring thing. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it's
oh,
not
I
a
got
healthy
this, but
debate.
you got this, but I got this,
Yeah,
but you got
yeah,
this, and
yeah.
it's like, oh, it gets tiring. It's like this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Okay, so then we can go the other extreme, then the hardline solution, lock everyone up who doesn't universally accept things like peace and cooperation, humanity, basically everybody's racist. That's not a solution either.
But that's a really extreme version of communism.
No, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So I'm saying, so we can't tell people what they should think. Okay, so then what it is, so then sometimes I think
it's like a multi-layered approach.
It's like if I want to convince, let's say, all right, here's an example in the NHS, right? If I want to convince a younger person to have a treatment and they're just not playing ball, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the parents. I'm going to get the parents on side, someone senior position, right? So then it filters down. It's coming from them and not from me, for example.
Yeah.
That would be another tact. But these things are, they're intergenerational. And I think the problem is the secret racists are in a lot of power.
That's the hardest part.
How do you get to them?
Because if you're really difficult, isn't it?
If you're in a position of power and you have this opinion, right, which is I'm a racist, right, and other people look at that and they try and model that, saying he is a baller man and he thinks like this. This is what I need to think like to get to that position. We need to break that link where it's like no. This isn't something to model. This isn't like champion behavior that you should be aspiring to be like. That's a big problem as well.
Yeah. I think also, I had two ideas really. So number one, this is going to be proper controversial, but I don't think cancelling people is the right way to go about it.
Cancelling?
So, when people
counselling or cancelling?
No, cancelling. Like, essentially,
what does that mean?
I'm gonna get you to lose your job now for this statement or being racist. They lose their job, they lose their well-being, like it's all gone because they did something racist. Now, part of me agrees with it, part of me doesn't agree with it.
Let's start with the part that agrees. Start with the agreement first.
So the part that agrees with it is, there's got to be repercussions for what you've done.
Right. So negative reinforcement.
There's got to be some sort of indicator to you that makes you think twice about doing this in the future. I get it. The part that I don't agree with is you're not educating them about it. All you're doing is you're taking everything away from them, which is probably going to make them more staunch in their ideas of saying like, no, they've done this to me because I said that. It's their fault. They've taken it away from me. So they become the victim. Right? And then by doing that, you're making things more and more divided. You're pushing them out of like a social circle. But then it doesn't mean that they change their mind about something. It means that they've just simply stepped out, but now they still probably have those thoughts. So you haven't fixed it. You just banished someone. That's not helping things.
You've deeply made them more deeply ingrained in that ideology. So what you're basically saying is then there needs to be repercussions, but there has to be this meaningful...
Yeah, so say if you have a flower bed, I can't just rip out one flower and say it's fixed. You have to rip up the whole flower bed and refit it. Because if you do that, you then allow it to grow successfully and have everything growing properly, and you understand what was at the root problem and you get that fixed. So everything is now fine. You see what I mean? That's what has to happen. There has to be like a remapping of some sort that goes on with people.
Okay, but who delivers that?
So this is where it gets sticky, right? I don't know.
So is there therapy that exists for racism? Let's say, like, let's use that now.
Maybe there is. Maybe there's like a form of CBT, or maybe there's some kind of like, if you make it compulsory that somebody who's been convicted of like a racial charge has to attend X amount of counselling sessions, they have to go to it. If they don't go to it or they don't attend,
negative consequences.
Then obviously there's further consequences, like you're going to be sentenced now because we gave you a chance. But
this is like the analogy of when you drive and you get a fine, right? Do the course or take the points and get the fine or whatever? Yes. Yeah. I like this analogy. This is a good analogy.
So if you do that, that's fine. But then equally, there has to be some sort of like, I personally think just having counselling is too lenient. I think you have to have some kind of bigger
negative. You
have to have some kind of bigger negative thing associated with it. Now you can try and blag your way through counselling and stuff, and you can still hold on to that. So there's ways around it. Now the reason why I say this is because you know Ian Wright. Yeah, he's an ex-Arsenal footballer.
Mate, he hates Ronaldo. Tell me that first. Why does he hate Ronaldo?
Ronaldo, does he?
Yeah, man, he's like, Ronaldo's not going to score this free kick. He never scores any free kicks. He's just gone off on one, man.
Was that Ian Wright?
Ian Wright, man, he's like, he never scores from free kicks. He's not going to score.
Yeah, but he doesn't dispute the fact that he's a great player.
I don't know, man. He seemed like he had some personal vendetta that day. But yeah, Ian Wright. Ian Wright.
Ian Wright, he was abused last year by a kid on Instagram. He sent him a bunch of racial messages.
Okay, what was the context here?
Just randomly, the kid lost the game of FIFA, and he jumped on and started saying X, Y, and Z to Ian Wright. I think that's what happened. The FIFA thing is definitely correct. I'm not sure if he lost the game to someone like black or something, maybe. I don't know. But
so random, he just randomly
Instagram.
Started...
Yeah, he jumped on. Ian Wright just posted on Twitter saying, can't believe I'm still getting messages like this nowadays. Obviously, Twitter doing their investigation thing, found out where he lives, found out everything about him. 18-year-old kid, right? Police took him in for questioning, released him.
Right.
And what happened was the kid then said, I think I got the notes here, what did I say? So, what did he do? The kid wrote him a formal apology. Ian Wright accepted it. And by Ian Wright accepting the apology, the judge then saw it as a way to give him leniency in the sentencing and not give him a jail sentence. Instead, he gave him probation and a much lighter sentence than the kid's actions.
Okay.
Now, what does that send out about other racism and issues with it for others in the future? It's such a minor offence. And it's crazy that there's so much leniency that's put down to the kid being naive. But say if someone is found being taking like recreational drugs at that age, they're given a much harsher sentence or much harsher treatment.
Yeah, but remember,
now, Ian Wright was pissed
this...
off because he said I shouldn't have accepted his apology if I knew that this was going to happen afterwards. He said he just got away scotch-free.
Okay, but here's the question. One, we're not the judge, so we don't know everything about the case, right?
I looked at the case online. That's exactly
but you can look at the case, but you're not the judge sitting there presiding and listening. Second thing is, if Ian Wright accepted the apology, that to me tells me that he thought that the intention was good and clear and this was a meaningful apology. Otherwise, why would he accept it?
I think he accepted it because he's just a genuine nice guy, right? However, I think there's a part of it which is maybe he shouldn't have accepted it because he would have been given harsher treatment afterwards and the kid would have been having some sort of reparations for what he did. And maybe how has he been since? The kid?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so for example, say there'd been no more tweets from him, has he not been? What's the word?
Okay, but that's him.
Reformed.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe for him, he might be more silent about it. It doesn't mean he's fixed. He might just keep it to himself. He might say it to other people. I'm just
still better than before, no?
Here.
Yeah, it's still better than before.
Maybe, but it's not fixed the problem, has it? And then by having such a lenient sentence in that way, what do you think it's going to do for other kids online that are thinking the same thing? Like, oh, this guy dared me to tweet somebody something racist, so I'll set up an anonymous profile and do it. They're never going to find me. If they find me, the max that's going to happen is I'm going to get a fine. Like,
no, but the law doesn't work by precedent. Each case is judged individually.
Each case is judged individually, yes.
Yeah.
But if you set a deterrent...
Yeah, you're saying just come out strong from the front and then why allow even people to start even think they can do it? I understand your point. Yeah, I agree. If you do it once and you set a really strong precedent, then it's like, man, this is not going to be accepted. So this would be interesting now, all this shit that's come out. Like, for example, these comedians, right? So they're kind of in semi-positions of power. Okay, this guy for BBC's lost all his gigs, right? But is there going to be more, like, are they going to make an example, a real example of somebody like this to say, no one is above the law, irrespective, like, so you got the kid or you got the drunkard who's quite easy to properly convict and really be harsh on. And then you got these people who kind of a bit more well-known, Savile Row kind of person, right?
But the weird thing about comedians is that Savile Row, you mean Savile's?
Savile, sorry, not Savile Row. Yeah.
I thought the same thing. I was like, who's Savile's? But I checked online. I think it's a construction company. No, it's a rental company or something like that.
But for someone like that, right? If he was made an example of, then it's like, okay, no one's immune, no one's above the law. Yeah. That's the kind of level of you need sentencing.
With comedians, they are. I'm not saying they get a protective blanket, but do you remember what I said last week about them pushing the boundaries? They do push the boundaries
which is a good thing in context.
But I think I don't ever want to silence a comedian from telling their jokes, and it's never going to go well.
But
if you do that, it just makes it smaller and smaller.
Timing is the thing.
Timing, setting up a premise, setting up a joke and stuff that makes it better.
Your own experiences.
Yeah. So say one thing comedians do that is really ingenious is they will have a really controversial topic, but they'll pad it. And the way they pad it is they'll like pre-build it with a precursor that takes the piss out of an experience they've had or a problem that they've got with themselves. And then by doing that, it softens the blow, but equally it makes you think like, oh shit, how did he slot that joke in without it going down really badly? It's because they've set the premise in such a genius way that it doesn't make it seem like it's controversial or it's an inflammatory statement. It's a normal thing, and I'm like, wow,
and then
that's where the art of it is.
The beauty of comedy is, if you reflect on, oh, I was laughing at that, I found that funny. Should I have found that funny? Oh, this is what I've learned about myself. That's the genius, man. You're like, shit. That's actually what I think about this topic.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So there's that side of it. So cancelling people, I'm torn on it personally. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I think there has to be like a balance with it, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't even know if that cancelling shit is real. It'd be great if it was, but if it's not, maybe it could be something.
What about schools, Indy? Schools.
So then my next point was that. My next point is education. So make this more from like an early age at school. So forget doing social studies. Fuck PSHE.
PSHE?
Like, make this a top priority. Huh?
PSHE?
Yeah, fuck that.
We're going to show you this video from the 1960s.
Don't show us that
old
video.
White man, telling you about the birds
showing
and the
his
bees.
genitals. This is what genitals are. This is how a penis works. I'm like, oh god, man, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But if they introduce education about racism early on at schools, from like say 7 or 8 years old,
right,
you can teach kids the pitfalls of racist bias that are put on others and help them think for themselves from an early age.
That's
or maybe they can see the world through the minority's glasses.
It's just basically getting kids in a room, right, and just basically questioning them. Guys, what is racism? Why do you think it exists?
Not even questioning them, but just like
no, it is.
Asking them
how does a mind learn how to think for itself? You have to question the mind for it to think. Oh yeah, okay, that's interesting. That's the only way if we don't think, we don't learn. That's the problem. When you stop thinking, you're not going to have an opinion, and that's dangerous because then you will conform. Because you feel like
no kid is ever brought up as a race. No kid is born racist. Every kid is born pure, innocent, a clean slate.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
You mold the kid how you see fit. Right. The things they're exposed to are the things that mold them or make them into who they are.
Absolutely.
Right.
But if you grow up and somebody's saying to you in your ear, these immigrants took our jobs. These black people, these Indian people, these ethnic
you're going to build
people.
a resentment towards them.
Do you know what I mean? Like really early on, and then you're going to go to school and you're going to pipe on about it, and then any situation which like just resembles
backs up
this
your bias. Yeah.
Right, and just deepens it, and you have any reason just to blame.
Bias.
That's it, and that's how you get deeply ingrained in opinion. Yeah.
So if you have some sort of education about that early on, how the classes are going to work, I have no idea. Like it's a concept that can help people, but say for adults, I don't know, maybe they would need, as we said, some kind of counselling or therapy to understand why they think they are about their own prejudices. And maybe they can complete a course where the therapist agrees that they've been rehabbed, and if they don't attend, like I said, give them a harsher punishment. But
consequence.
There has to be more sort of done to educate people about these sort of preconceived notions they have, because otherwise,
like let me give you another example.
It's not going to fix itself, and just those circles are going to get more and more divided, more and more separate, more and more excluded.
Imagine
that's how. Go on.
Imagine you and me.
Yeah.
We're not black, right? But we're brown guys with beards. Brown guys with beard, there is a connotation, terrorist. Yeah, imagine 100%. You and me, we go into a school with some kids, and we just introduce ourselves. I'm Jazz, he's Indy. Guys, the fact that we have beards, does that scare you? Question number one. Okay, then we get some divided answers. Why does me having a beard scare you? This is the kind of shit, man. Just really getting into kids, getting around kids, and just questioning their belief system, right?
Getting into a kid's psyche. Yeah.
Exactly. But we would be in a position from what we have, because like you said, earlier you said, if I walked around certain areas, I would feel unsafe. It's because of the way we look, man. Right? We don't conform to we're not clean shaven and all that kind of stuff, right? But I think we are in a unique position because there is a part of the population that live in the UK, do not want to be British, make no effort to fit into British cultural norms. Yeah. I don't think they're good either, but I think where we have flourished, I'd say, Indy, is that we have our Punjabi roots and we are loyal to that, but we're also very British, and I think the fusion of the two is what we enjoy, right? It is our thing. Like, you know, in the hospital, right? You know, the corridor. You remember that picture I had taken for that cover of that magazine?
Yeah.
In that corridor, on the right-hand side, there are these pictures of basically people in the community. One of the pictures, two pictures, and one is of ladies in the Gurdwara with chunnis serving langar. Okay, there's another one of this Baba, like proper Hang Singh, playing cards with other Babbe.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like Qatar would look like when he's older. That kind of look.
Yeah.
Right?
Qatar is one of our friends for a
Qatar is one of
reference.
our friends,
Okay.
and this will be him when he's older. And so one of the days, you know, this I noticed this paramedic, white lady, was standing there looking at the picture. And so I just walked over to her and I was like, do you know what this is? And just to give context, she wasn't being racist or anything. She generally just didn't know. But I took it as an opportunity there to be like, oh,
to
this is a
educate.
Sikh. Yeah, this is a Sikh person. I'm a Sikh. This is what we believe. This is what's being here. 2-3 minutes, tops. That person now can tell, she has understanding, and now she can spread it on. All it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a blank slate. Imagine trying to
Blank slate, yeah. Unpick.
Imagine
yeah.
trying to change
different
someone's
thing.
mind that's been filled full of shit. Like, that's a long process.
I think I need to watch that film again, man. American History X. How does he get reformed in that film?
I've never seen it.
Oh, dude, you need to watch that
Watch
film.
Black Klansman. That's a good film.
Yes, started it. It's when Denzel's son plays the undercover.
Yeah, and that's about
Yeah.
racism in the Ku Klux Klan. That's really, really, really fucking good. I was surprised how good it was. And that's based on a true story as well. But one last thing on the racial thing, and we can move on. Racial terms said under the phrase banter. I have a genuine issue with this, which is sort of like a get out of jail free card that people use, which is where people say something subtly with what they actually mean, but they cushion it under this phrase banter. And I don't
example?
personally. So I can't give you an example as such. All right. Okay, say when I was in school, I used to wear a bartka.
Yep.
With a bartka, I had a barge. What's that called in English?
Metal stick to tuck in your hair.
Yeah, and I use it to tuck in my hair, right? Now, with that, I used to take it out and tuck my hair in and put it back in.
Right.
One time, I took it out amongst these kids at school, and I took it out, and the kid was saying, put it back in, it's going to explode. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, the bomb underneath your head is going to explode. And I was like, okay.
Cool. Bruv.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he's like, oh, it's just banter. And then I'm thinking like, all right. But looking back on it, I was like, no, that's not funny, bro. That's just you saying something racist and trying to hide it because you feel like you can. And you think that we're on friendly terms in that way, but we're not. Now, the issue with this banter thing is that it's a massive grey area because somebody might feel like they're comfortable enough to say something like that to you, but you don't think you're on the same terms as that or the same sort of, you haven't got that same sort of relationship built up. So I can, but the problem you have is when you have that happen to you from a young age, you want to fit in, so you accept shit like that said to you in order to sort of get
not
into
be the
that
rebel
circle.
and
And best believe it does happen at schools. People just use it as an excuse. It's basically a cop out to say how you really feel. So with the banter thing, I'm like, it's a real issue, and I'm sure that stuff like that happens in work cultures all the time, high up. Like people say stuff like that about other people all the time and just say, oh, it's just a bit of banter, mate. Don't worry, don't think too much about it. It's cool. I'm like,
fine line.
It's not really,
fine line, because having banter is obviously very important. It's all part of rapport, relationships. To be honest, it's what makes my work fun.
It's a
If I didn't
part
have
of
banter,
British
it'd be dead.
culture. I get it.
It's very, very important. But yes, defining banter is like a grey area. And you're right, it does depend on the relationship. Like you and me could probably have much more severe banter, let's say.
Oh, we could lay into each other for hours, and I'll say to you at the end, Garan, I love you, and you're like, I love you too, and that's it. It's cool. Like it's fine. There's no issues with that. But that's because I've known you for 7 years, right? I'm allowed to say that to you. I've been on holidays with you and stuff, right? Like that's built. Not someone I've worked with for a couple of years who can say that to me casually. See,
absolutely, absolutely
levels.
So that's it. It's casual racism, isn't it?
Yeah. But that's where it sort of seeps in a little bit, doesn't it? It's like, okay, you have to wean that out too.
But because the problem is, again, if that doesn't get challenged there, it's all right, innit? It's all right. And then you get to higher levels of proper racism.
And they push it, and they push it, and they push it. It's like someone at work who tries to take your ideas. If they take one, they're going to keep taking them again and again until you stand up for yourself. Then when you stand up for yourself, they'll back off. And it's like, oh, okay. All it took was for me to stand up for myself to stop you from taking things too far. So, yeah, it's a bit of a give and take, isn't it?
Absolutely, man.
But I have a big question for you, Karen. Do you still think you've never experienced racism to this day. So I remember the one time that on that podcast
You asked me, yeah.
you've never experienced this. Yeah.
It's hands like up, man, like never.
It's mad. I still can't.
So
believe it, man.
I was gonna say, because we've had similar upbringings in terms of like schooling, that kind of thing, but I've never felt that somebody has treated me differently because I'm brown, Sikh, Punjabi. Yeah. Been around good friendships. I mean, like the one time I remember was my neighbor in my old house, Sikh guy, his cousin, maybe 2 years younger than me, said something like, "Oh, what's that on your head? What's that dick on your head? Jura."
Yeah.
But I don't know if is that racism? If like it's coming from the person
Yeah,
who's
it is, bro.
similar.
Yeah, it is. I used to have that said to me in the secondary school I used to go to at my local comp. They were like, "Why does it look like you got like a dick under your head?" And I was like, "Oh, interesting." And I used to get proper aggressive about it. And I was like, "Oh, they're just naive." But equally, why did you say dick? I'm like, someone must have said something like this to you in the past, like, "Oh, it looks like a dick on his head," right? So maybe that was shared with them and they kept that in mind. They're like, "Oh yeah, you know what? It does look like a dick." So, you know, who said that to them? Then who said that to that person? Then you've got to trace it further and further back.
Mate, that's the real track and trace right there. You know?
See what I mean? Trace that NHS, man. Fucking hell.
Man.
Sort it out, yeah? Get on it.
But look, the other thing I will say for people listening to this podcast, guys, and I talked about this a lot, maybe not on the podcast, but offline, is this real sense of personal responsibility. Okay? And it's like when you drink a can of Coke, right? And you're like, me putting this one can of recycling is not going to save the world. If you think like that, you'll never do anything.
Yeah.
Whatever you have the means to do within your means and your environment, do it. And so what I'm saying here is to extrapolate is if you're in a situation and you have the ability to challenge someone's perception about things which are universally wrong, like hate based on color, racism, okay, then please start having an opinion, voice up, and let's squash out the minority. That's what we need to do.
It's sort of on like everybody else to make sure they sort of take
pipe
that
up, stand, good fight.
They pipe up and take that stand and really just be staunch about it and just hold your ground, man. Even if you can't back up the conversation, just challenge them on it. Like at least make.
Yeah, and guys, that question is, why do you think that? What experiences have you had that led you to believe this? And then just shut up, man. Even if you're just learning that. Because sometimes when people voice their stuff and like you said, they realize it's just absolute bullshit.
They can stumble on their own thoughts. Yeah.
Right? And then it's just like you're just helping them disprove their own theories, ideologies, and it doesn't have any merit. And even if that's just the first hit of many hits for them to finally discredit this way of thinking. Because people do reform. It's not that people don't reform.
No, of course they do. There's a guy who went on Rogan who said he's a black gentleman. I forgot his name. But he was going around stopping people from being in the Ku Klux Klan. And he was talking to them and convincing them to not be in the Ku Klux Klan. And over time, he was bringing them back into the normal world and stopping them being racist. And he'd done that for like a good few hundred people, I think it was now. Okay. And he's on this mission to like just essentially do it. And I was like, that's incredible. Like imagine the amount of groundwork you have to do to put someone in who's really that heavily invested into that sort of life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible.
You make that cause.
It's someone's piece of life work though to go and do that, but I guess it is possible. And it's all done through conversations. It wasn't like he just he
waterboarded them
or anything like that, or he waterboarded them or anything.
No, you can't think like this.
Exactly, it wasn't anything like that. We do have another segment though to add in. So
do you want to do it?
Got a new segment, people. New segment is.
No, he wants to do it. Okay.
That new condition. Have you got time? You got time, Karan?
I thought racism was a condition. That's the condition we need to treat, Indy.
What racism? I think we've dissected that topic to a T now.
I think the interesting thing about this new segment, right? And guys, to give a bit of context, we sometimes do the other version of the segment, which is where I bring funny medical stories. They're not always funny, but there are real things that are happening to me, and I just share them with you. But Indy now is going to bring random ass medical conditions that I've never heard of, which means I have to revise for the podcast to learn about these conditions. So it's like I don't have enough already. So today, on the way,
it means that
to the
you're
gym,
still excelling in the doctor space. If anything, I'm helping you, buddy. All right.
Yeah, that's it. You're trying to make me house, aren't you?
So this
Dr.
week's
House.
medical condition is called Sleeping Beauty syndrome,
Dun, dun, dun.
and it's called Klein-Levin syndrome. Klein spelled with a K.
Yep.
So
KO,
Sleeping
KO
Beauty
syndrome.
syndrome, Darren. Tell me what's going on.
So, like I said, didn't know what this condition was. Most of the stuff that we're going to talk about here, I will never have heard of, by the nature of it being very rare. So I was watching a few videos about this, and guys, this is really the way to learn, man. I was thinking about the way I learn things now, and it's really not by reading
Visual.
things. It's YouTube, man. Like YouTube explainer videos
man.
are the one, man. Like I'll use that for context and get like an overview, and then I might read in like detailed things.
Yeah.
But the first thing they said was, it's really funny how they talked about. So the analogy is with Sleeping Beauty. This is obviously to do with sleeping, and even that story is like they start with that story is really weird, man. You got this woman that goes to sleep, and then this bloke comes and kisses her, and Disney made a film about it.
Wakes
'Cause
her
that's
up.
okay, right? But that's okay, isn't it? Some dude just kissing a woman,
Kissing a woman who's asleep.
molesting a woman. Yeah.
Haven't you heard that they're trying to cancel that film now?
Which film?
Sleeping Beauty.
Are they? As in, what
Yeah.
they're trying to make a new one, or you mean? Or?
No, they're trying to get people to stop showing it because of that. The fact
The
that the
original?
guy's kissing a girl. She didn't consent to that kiss.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of weekends, Shindy's birthday, the kids around, my niece is around, and so we normally end up watching like a Disney film. I think there's a film called Raya, I think Ray.
That dragon.
Right, yeah, that really good
Yeah.
film, man. But what Disney are trying to do with ladies and women and characters now, it's not about princesses, man, anymore. Like these are
Yeah, it's heavy on the
warriors,
power thing.
man. Yeah, it's all
Warriors,
about
yeah.
empowerment, like the shift in. Anyway, so Sleeping Beauty syndrome actually affects more men than women. So 70% of people that are affected are men. Super rare. Like you're talking 1 in a couple of million. Okay.
Wow.
And for some reason, it affects the Jewish population more. So there seems to be some sort of genetic predisposition.
Wow.
The cause is unknown. So research is ongoing, but they don't have a cause, which means they don't really have a treatment for this condition. Now, when I tell you the condition, it actually sounds really like some people might think, oh, that's really nice, actually. Okay, so basically, you just sleep a lot. You have insomnia, the inability to sleep, and you have hypersomnia, basically sleeping too much. Like you're talking 22, 23 hours a day.
22 hours a day. That's insane.
Yeah, right. And so some people might think that, oh, that's really nice. I like sleeping.
No,
But-
because you lose a day.
Well, we'll come on to that. So we'll come on to the time loss and time lapse and that kind of thing. But basically, if you slept all the time, the problem would be you would die from
Not
starvation, and not drinking any water, dehydration.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that have this condition, the brief period of time that they're awake for, which can be 1 or 2 hours, basically all they wake up for is to wee, drink, and eat, and then bang, they fall asleep again. So
Wow.
it tends to happen in waves. So like somebody could have a bout, like a cluster, right? They could have it for a couple of weeks, and then be fine for like a year, and then it could come back again. So it comes in waves, and when they're fine, they're completely normal. You wouldn't know anything, but when they have it, like this one person I was reading about, she basically missed her final year exams. She's in America because she just slept through it, but she was undiagnosed. Like it's such a rare condition, so it's like what we call a diagnosis of exclusion. So people often get labeled as lazy.
Yeah.
Or they're looking for other like deficiencies. You must be anemic, you must be a thyroid problem, you must be vitamin D deficiency, So diagnosis takes a long time. It's a diagnosis of exclusion when you diagnose, sort of excluded everything else. But yeah, they sleep a lot. They have hallucinations. When they do wake up, they're kind of like in a bit of a fog and they're a bit disoriented with kind of time and space. One of the big things they read on like is obviously time doesn't stop for them, so they miss things in the world. Very hard to have relationships.
Wow.
They do get really horny though, but
What?
they're hyper aroused, which is a bit odd. I mean, they don't have much time to do
What? So
anything
for
anyway.
the 1 or 2 hours a day, it's just sort
Exactly.
it all out. That's it.
Yeah,
But how do you
well, yeah.
have energy for it though? If you've used all your energy sleeping.
Well, exactly. And the analogy that I was watching was they're kind of like people become like bears. This is like hibernation. Basically, you eat and drink so you can sleep. But yeah, man, weird. weird.
What about what about caffeine or something to keep them awake? Doesn't that help?
Yeah, you can try. I mean, people have tried all these stimulant things, and it will to a certain degree. But this overwhelming lethargy and tiredness and sleepiness just overcomes them, and they just can't. They can't function. So for the time that they have it, they're just pretty dead to the world. And that coupled with hallucinations, not being able to focus, and missing what's happening in the world, it's just a very odd condition, man. Chaos syndrome.
Could you get like disability allowance for it or anything?
Yeah, probably. I mean, that girl with the university, she got chucked out of uni basically, and then she got diagnosed, and then they let her back into uni with like mitigating circumstances.
Because she was doing medicine, right? So they obviously. Hang on, where'd I get the medicine shit from? No, she missed her final exams. You didn't tell me the.
I didn't.
The field
you
she
presumed,
was in. No.
Yeah.
I presume that. I don't know why I presume.
Because what you presume, isn't it?
Talking to a doctor, innit?
Talking to a doctor, man. Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's the condition. Very, very odd. I can't say I've ever seen anybody with that. Treatment. There's some experimental treatment. They're using lithium. Lithium is a mood stabilizer which we use in things like bipolar, and apparently it's showing some promise. What they need to do and what they're trying to do is obviously isolate these cases, as in diagnose people who actually have it and then study them. But you obviously need willing participants to study.
That's
difficult. They think it's to do with... Well, exactly, because it's hard to diagnose. And when you have them, they have to consent to being studied. There's a part of the brain called the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is responsible for your involuntary bodily functions, such as sleep regulation, your hunger, thermoregulation, temperature, lots of things like that. They think it's to do with that because there are certain conditions where if you have a tumor which grows in the same area, then you get symptoms like this syndrome where you just sleep too much. But it's not exactly the same. So they think it still is multifactorial, multiple parts of the brain are being stimulated at the same time. There's no scan or blood test that will diagnose it. It's what we call a clinical diagnosis. So based on the symptoms someone's telling you, that's how you make the diagnosis. You'll obviously exclude tumours, you'll have brain scans, you have blood tests, exclude all the other things. And if you can't find anything, then maybe you're given this label or diagnosis. But in between, they're completely fine.
What's the, people take something to help them sleep, not sleeping tablets, but there's a chemical you can take to help you sleep when you're on like a plane. Is it melanin? Is that right? Is that the word?
Melatonin, that's
it. What's the benefit of that? Just like a side note, because I know people that have been struggling to sleep and I think they will want to try it.
Yeah, I'm not going to advocate people to have melatonin unless they've seen their doctor.
Melatonin, but it's basically a chemical that helps you sleep, right?
Yeah, so melatonin is produced by your body, and it's the hormone that's released that tells you to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the same way that we have hormones like leptin and ghrelin, which tell us we're hungry and that we're full. We have things that regulate all these things, and if you're lacking it, then you can give a little bit, but it shouldn't be used. Like, people can become, addicted on sleep tablets, zopiclone, things like this, melatonin. So another kind of sedatives, much in the way like Michael Jackson, man, we talked about before. He was using propofol, things that we use to put somebody into a coma to have surgery to go to sleep.
Yeah, it's insane.
But coma is not the same as sleep, so the quality of sleep isn't going to be the same. Right, so that's something to think about.
It's like how they put you under when you go to sleep for a surgery. You don't wake up feeling fresh. You wake up feeling.
You don't, because it's not sleep, is it? I think that's sleep and coma are two different things, man.
Yeah.
Yes, the state looks the same because you're like, but obviously it's not the same thing, man.
You're not refreshed at all. You wake up, you feel rough, man.
Have you had general anesthetic or?
Yeah, a few times when I had my ear operations in the past.
Bloody hell, a few times. Look at you, man. You're a medical marvel, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you were Marvel, you're not a Spider-Man. You need to be some medical condition, man.
I don't know what it would be. It would just be the guy who's Mr. Glass.
Yes, that is you.
But not in that way.
Yes.
Not in that way.
Yes.
Not in that way. Right.
Dude, you'll get there, man.
Unbreakable.
You will get there, man. On a side note, have you seen The Widow, Black Widow?
No, I'm gonna see it this weekend.
Good.
Gotta check it out. Don't see Space Jam. Apparently, it's really shit.
Still gonna watch it. Space Jam, man. Like good feeling, man. Like good vibes. You gotta watch it.
You know what? Watch the first one again. Tell me what you think of it, because I've been told to watch it again, and I've told it's aged really badly. So
no, I watched it like recently in the last couple of years. I love it, man. I love it.
Fair enough, man.
Like it's MJ, man. It's MJ. My mum took my whole class to watch that film. My birthday. 24 of us in Showcase Cinema. Like I have awesome
That's
memories,
cute,
man.
That's cute.
Do you know what I mean?
Like
Popular. Well, no. It's a funny thing. It wasn't about being popular. It was more like I was like to my mom, I don't know who not to invite. Let's just invite everyone. That happened in school, didn't it?
Yeah,
like you had birthdays, you invite some people, but I was just like, no, I don't want to not invite anyone. That's just really mean.
Yeah.
Just invite everybody. I don't think about the money side to it. Like mum bought these tickets, everyone had popcorn, had drinks. Like it's a lot of money, man. It's a lot of money, and I'm like, I'm gonna get more presents. That's really what I thought. But yeah, man.
Bro, MJ. You know what? Whenever someone says to me MJ, I do think
Michael Jackson
first.
Oh, you think Michael Jordan?
Michael Jordan. I think Jordan. But that's because of my basketball background, because I love it. But not everyone.
Because of your what?
Because I love basketball, man.
No, that's not what you said. Because of my basketball background. This is like when
basketball background, but I love it.
No, this is when like you said, Dino, yeah, I played basketball. He's like, which team? Oh, I didn't play for the Lakers. No, I didn't play for
Yeah, man, I didn't play for the Lakers. What are you on about? Bro, basketball background, listen, basketball is my main sport, man. Hands down. Maybe football.
Okay, just to give people context, it's the main sport in which Indy spectates and watches, right?
That's right. I don't play it. Right, let's just get that right.
You make it sound like some sports critic, analyzers, and pundit.
I like the entertainment.
Entertainment value. Okay.
I can watch basketball all day. It's great.
Oh, that's good. Well, definitely we should. I would love at some point for you to take me to a live game, and I'd love to share that experience with you because you could, help me understand.
I can tell you as to what's what.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see if they come back to the UK. If they do, we'll try and sort it out.
Well, maybe Olympics, man. Olympics is happening. America should be getting a gold. No.
No, America. So the Team USA basketball team lost to I think
Nigeria.
They lost to Nigeria.
Yeah,
For context, they beat Nigeria by 50 points in the 2012 Olympics.
Okay, so just LeBron James is not in this team, or what? Or
no.
Because?
But there are superstar players in this team. It's just not.
Why is LeBron James not in this, sorry?
Because he's 36 and he retired from international basketball after the 2012 Olympics.
You can retire from international. That doesn't make any sense, man.
You can retire from the international team, yeah.
But he's playing at the highest level in terms of the NBA, which is like.
Yeah, but also he's 36 years old, Karan. He needs rest in the off season. You can't play a full NBA season. He needs to get
goal. How old was Kobe when he played his last Olympics?
I don't know, but he wasn't 36, right?
Look it up, man. I mean, Kobe. Yeah, okay, fine.
Kobe was not 36, bro.
Either way, NBA is the best league in the world for basketball. Yes or no?
Yes. Yeah.
You should have There should be no time in history where America does not win the gold in basketball. Like, how can that ever exist?
Yeah, America lost in the Olympics in 2004. They won in 2008 with the Redeem team.
Right. Redeem team.
Because they redeemed themselves after getting bronze the previous year. Right, I think Spain won it in 2004, and then 2012 they came to London and they just dominated everyone. It wasn't.
That was the Annihilation Tour. Yeah, okay. 2016, won again.
2016, I think they got gold again as well. Yeah. This is the one where it's looking a bit shaky.
Doesn't make sense to me though, man. If you got the NBA, how can you not have the best players?
Because some players don't gel with other players. It's simple.
Politics.
You
politics again.
No. It isn't that. It's just you can't just throw together the best 5 players and think they're going to play great basketball. Some players have to do like the dirty work. So
individual versus dream. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Issues.
Okay. I get that. That's a good point. But let's see. Should be interesting.
All good. Right. Catch you next week.
Wait. I want to give one shout out, man.
Yes, go on.
You're supposed to remind me. You didn't remind me, so I'm going to give a shout out.
I didn't remind you. I forgot. I'm conscious of time. Sorry.
Oh, you're conscious of time now. I want to give a shout out to a very good friend. Someone I had the pleasure of spending 2-3 hours, man, just catching up. A loyal listener of the podcast, Indy. Like, literally, we were sitting there catching up, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it was Shindy's birthday. Oh yeah," and he was like, "You realize I listen to everything on the podcast?" And I was like, "Man, I don't even remember what I said on the podcast." And he's referencing it. So it's my very good friend Raghav Gupta. He listens to it every Wednesday. I think when he's either at the gym or.
Does he know it comes out at 6 a.m. on Wednesdays now?
Huh? Does it?
It comes out at 6 a.m. every Wednesday, the audio. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Maybe that, yeah. He knew that. But yeah, man, so he's a friend from school, primary school. And we've been chatting over the last couple of years, just like now and again. And we end up going to the same events like Russell Peters. and he's actually moved back to Birmingham from London, and we just
Nice.
caught up the other day, and it was really nice, man. He was just very, very warm about the podcast, and like I said, man, it was just very nice that somebody takes the time to really listen to the podcast
Of course, man.
and gets
It is
value
nice when
out of
somebody
it.
just
So thank you, man.
messages you like that and tells you. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. So
Thanks,
thank
Raghav,
you,
man.
Tim.
We appreciate it, bro.
Absolutely.
For all listeners, thank you for listening. Let us know your thoughts on the racism topics and discussion. Let us know if you have any ideas of your own. I'm
About
more than
how.
happy to entertain this about how to tackle it. Let us know if we did a good or bad job dissecting it. I think we did a decent enough job. And we will catch you soon. Like, comment, share, subscribe.
Share 5 people. 5 people who need to hear about
5
this
people.
now. Okay? Do it.
5
People.
the magic of 5. Yeah, thank you. That'd be great. If
Okay.
you could. Thank you. If
Sure.
you don't have 5 people,
If you haven't got 5 friends,
you gotta ask yourself, man.
Indy
really,
will be your
you don't have
friend.
5?
Indy will be your friend.
We'll be your friends. Just
No,
message
Indy will
us.
be your
Thank
friend.
you. No, Karan, he will be your
Indy
friend.
will be your friend.
Look, the Indian doctor profile will be your friend on Instagram. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Which is managed by Indy.
Which is managed by both of us. Right.
But mainly
Catch you
Indy.
soon. Bye, guys.